Whoa, okay, where to start with this one? Here's my review of Jurassic World Dominion. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who've reached out to me during this time and asked me what I thought about Jurassic World Dominion. It's really great to hear from you, and it's nice that you're getting excited about this next chapter in the Jurassic Park saga. What did I think about it? Well, actually I enjoyed it more than I expected. With all the review chatter that's going on at the moment, it's actually got some really awful reviews, and I didn't actually read the contents of the reviews, but I couldn't miss the headlines, and it seemed like it was doing really poorly. So I went in with quite low expectations. That, and I hadn't watched any of the marketing after the first trailer, so I was pretty spoiler free, and that allowed me to enjoy more of the content of the film, I think. The movie to me is comprised of two halves. You've got this James Bond-esque action-adventure romp with Owen and Claire going on one side of the film. Then you've got an eco-disaster science fiction thriller on the other side, taking place with our legacy characters of Ellie, Alan and Ian. I found the eco-disaster plot the more interesting part of the film, but oddly it didn't involve many dinosaurs. On the action-adventure side, you had Maisie being kidnapped, who was now intellectual property that was wanted by Biosyn, and you had some shady characters that seemed like they were out of a comic book, to be honest. They were dressed kind of like Marvel characters, their time on screen was short-lived, and they had very bold personalities. They didn't really feel to me like Jurassic Park characters, and neither did the events of that James Bond-esque half of the film. To me, that represented everything wrong with this reboot saga, that there's way too much action packed in, too many characters with little to no exposition, and the dinosaurs are used frivolously. That said, the Giganotosaurus was foreshadowed in discussion, that it was the apex predator, that it was the largest carnivore, etc, etc, and this gave the Giganotosaurus a little bit of a fear factor. Unfortunately though, when it actually materialized in the film, apart from like a battle that it has that's brief with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, it feels quite lumbering and slow. And when we've had the action of the I-Rex in Jurassic World already, this doesn't quite feel very exciting anymore. And actually in Jurassic Park, although the T-Rex was lumbering and slow, the tension was actually visceral because of the way that the film was shot. In this case, it actually felt like you were waiting for the Giganotosaurus to just catch up with the humans, and that was a little bit of a shame. The Giganotosaurus was really planted there to fight the T-Rex at the end, in a beat-for-beat copy of what we saw in Jurassic World. At this point, I feel dinosaur fights are really unnecessary to the plot, and what I really want to see is humans in peril being chased by these dinosaurs. Sure, we had the standoff with the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the raptors in the original Jurassic Park, but I always felt like this was just the T-Rex pursuing its human prey and happening across the raptors first and eating them. To have these battles happening again and again feels too much of a coincidence and isn't something I'm interested in. I did enjoy the inclusion of the Therizinosaurus with its sword-like fingery claws, but I felt that when Claire went under the water, the dinosaur would have still detected her presence and put its head under the water, much like a bird with its beak, and just fetched its prey. I don't think that would have worked effectively to protect her. And as much eye-rolling as I did at the fight scene at the end, the Therizinosaurus impaling the Giganotosaurus was undeniably satisfying. Sadly, I feel that the rest of the dinosaurs were mishandled for various reasons, but most of the new species weren't really foreshadowed or discussed in any way that made their threat apparent. And when they turned up, much like these Marvel human characters, their appearance was brief and ended shortly after they'd arrived. So it didn't feel like we got a real feel for each species. Perhaps bringing back more legacy species would have worked effectively here, not only to celebrate the saga, but also because we know and fear certain species already, even if they were herbivores like the Pachycephalosaurus and that was chasing Owen down the street, and you had a combination of different dinosaurs. Maybe this would have added more of an effective way to create that fear factor, rather than having these new species that we don't really know much about and don't really have an established threat. And while we're discussing established threats, what a wonderful idea to bring back the Dilophosaurs, the spitters. but sadly I have to say the execution wasn't great. The puppets, the sculpts, and the actual performance of the dinosaurs left a lot to be desired, and compared to 30 years ago what Stan Winston Studios brought to the screen, these do not hold up. And that's a real shame. It's a nice idea to bring these things back, and actually perhaps if they'd had animatronics used throughout this whole soft reboot saga, they would have built up the institutional knowledge needed to actually do these Dilophosaurs justice. As it stands, they pale in comparison to the ones that Stan Winston used in 1992. To me, the favourite prehistoric creature that was brought back was the locusts. I thought this side of the story, the eco-disaster plot, was really inspired and felt Crichton-esque. The fact that they put this facility in the middle of nowhere, a bit like the Andromeda Strain, which was actually a Michael Crichton directed film, I thought was really good. And I felt like this should have been the plot for Jurassic World or Jurassic Park 4, because it doesn't retread the idea of a dinosaur resort, which we know failed already. Here, the dinosaur cloning facility is built for research and genetic advancement to actually benefit the human race, with Dodgson as a sort of Steve Jobs of this new front. And when our favourite paleobotanist from Jurassic Park, Ellie Sattler, realises that this company, Biosyn, who owns this facility, are also cloning prehistoric locusts that potentially could devastate crops worldwide, she decides to break in and get proof with the help of Ian Malcolm and Alan Grant. And that's why when these locusts swarm for the first time in a really pivotal scene, and again in a claustrophobic space, they really are the scariest prehistoric creature in this film, and that's why I like them the most. And there are some really inspired moments with these locusts, one being when Dodgson decides to destroy any evidence of these locusts by setting them on fire in this confined glass box of a lab, and he just watches on with his glasses reflecting back the fire of this swarm going round and round in this lab. Just a metaphor for man's destruction at any length to kind of secure control. It's really nice. And then as he leaves, they actually break loose of this lab, showing that he has absolutely no control whatsoever, and they swarm out of the facility into the air, and actually pieces of them drop down on fire in a kind of metaphor for the dinosaurs' extinction, while a literal extinction of mankind is inevitable with these locusts on the loose. It's really powerful stuff, and it's probably the best ideas I've seen executed in this entire trilogy. Blue and Beta return in a way that I feel isn't strictly necessary. Blue kind of stands on the sidelines and raises Beta, and Beta is used as like an additional MacGuffin with Maisie to be studied at Biosyn. Really, they only needed Maisie. You didn't need to have Beta be part of this story, and actually by not having Blue and Beta in the story, it might have prevented the amount of times Owen had to put up his hand to prevent raptors eating him. There are several attempts at heartwarming moments towards the close of this film, and I can understand why, because it's the final chapter in the saga. But Owen and Claire are supposed to be surrogate parents to Maisie, and this feels a little bit forced and sudden because it's only started happening in this film, and so it hasn't really been documented enough to make it feel genuine. And there is a scene where Maisie quizzes Alan and Ellie about their relationship status. At the beginning of the film, Ellie admits she's divorced from her husband, Mark, who we saw in Jurassic Park 3, leaving it open for Alan and Ellie to get back together. And this is a very predictable ending at the end as they share a kiss. I'm not sure this romance is needed. I have to be absolutely honest. And I think the more mature response from Maisie might have been if they'd said, yes, we were in a relationship, but actually we value our friendship most. This also would have removed the need to make Alan Grant so vulnerable in this film, as he admits his work is lonely and he misses Ellie. And this may be due to my enjoyment of them in the novel, in that their relationship is purely academic, and that goes hand in hand with the themes of Jurassic Park. While I like the fact that Steven Spielberg added the themes and subtexts of parenting, I do think that the film benefits from not focusing on romance too much. And I'd say the tension between Grant, Ellie and Ian is always something that was good to have there. So I think that could have been played up more. So there we have it. That was my review of Jurassic World Dominion after having watched it fresh. If you'd like me to go into any points in finer detail, do let me know. I'd love most of all to hear what you thought of the film, so please do put your comments down below. As I said, I've loved hearing from you all, and I hope you enjoy the film. I enjoyed the parts that I spoke about in this review, and I hope you do too. In the meantime, guys, rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. One small thing I did notice is that Dodgson's embryo cryocan, which he must have retrieved from Jurassic Park, was actually the wrong design can. It's actually the modern can design, so he must have got his replica off of eBay. Anyway, link to the video showing the accurate can design is down below and how I recreated it.